This weekend also UFC Raleigh fight night. It was heavyweights in the main event. Curtis Razor Blaydes trying to make that step forward toward a title shot. And you talk about a dominant performance. Second round TKO over former champion Junior Dos Santos. Didn't do it with his wrestling, did it with the threat of his wrestling, finishing him with the right hand and then punches that followed. Now, Chuck, I'm thoroughly impressed. And I hadn't been a big Curtis Blaydes guy.
Yeah.
Solid, never spectacular. The finish of Overeem woke me up.
Yeah.
This one did it.
Okay.
But here's my question, because he's talking title afterwards. And he's really third in the UFC rankings and just made the biggest victory of his career. But he only has 2 defeats to his pro record, and they're to the guy right in front of him in terms of Francis Ngannou. One in which he got hurt and retired, the second in which it was a quick knockout.
Yeah.
Does he have to beat him to really get in line and be a true title challenger?
Well, I don't see a way he even gets back to Ngannou. His best bet right now is in March when Ngannou takes on Rosenstrike in the main event there. He's got to root for Rosenstrike, right? You got to have the other guy kind of get through and put Ngannou behind you, because I just can't see a route for him right now unless something crazy happens, which in MMA we know is possible. But he's probably going to have another fight or two, just the way it's playing out. You still got Miocic against Cormier. I'm guessing that the UFC is still trying to book. I don't know where that is at right now, but that's going to happen. You have that other fight, which I still think the pole position comes from that.
Very interesting, because you want to talk about a guy who's made that evolution. He's not just a wrestler. He's now put together a few different knockout wins. It wasn't just Overeem, JDS. He had that real good one against the name's falling out of my brain at the moment.
The Russian cat.
Yeah, probably the Russian cat. Probably, some Ukrainian guy, whatever.
Yeah.
But the whole point is the threat of his wrestling is now what is so well setting up his power. And he hurt JDS a couple of times leading into that stoppage. We talked about the potential road to get to a title shot, but in terms of legitimate title contender, if he fought tomorrow, a Stipe Miocic or a Daniel Cormier, would you give him a legitimate chance?
I think he's getting there, but I'm not sure I would pick him yet. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I was a little bit eye-opening. If you'd said that he was going against JDS and the JDS would thwart his takedown attempts, all 6 or 7 of them, I would think, well, that probably means he got knocked out or picked apart on the feet. But the fact that he was able to stand use the basically, like you said, as a threat and use Plan Z, as he called it, and use his hands and kind of showcase those a little bit, tells me he's come a long way at just kind of adapting to what's happening in a fight. Because a couple that Ngannou, like you think about the Ngannou fight, it would be nice to have a few more tricks up his sleeve. I feel like he's getting those. So he's getting close. I would still like to see him maybe do that one more time. He's got a nice collection of names now, man. He's got, you mentioned Overeem, Mark Hunt. Now he's got JDS. He's starting to put them together. But give me one more, and if we see him do it, I think he'd be ready.
So it's interesting to see if the kryptonite of Francis Ngannou will follow him throughout his career, because it's rare when somebody would lose twice to a guy and then need to beat him a third time to get to what he wants. It's sort of like I interviewed Claudia Gadeja, head of UFC 246, in her fight that fell apart. And she's like, the Joanna beef will never end, and I will fight her a third time, and I might need to get through her to get the title or get into a title shot. It's sort of weird when that plays out, where you get a trilogy based on, one-sided, but then again, I'm the guy who's calling for DC John Jones 3, so what the heck?
Same here.
Do I know? Heavyweights were in the main event this weekend, but you want to talk about the fight of the night on paper coming in that we needed to see. It was the co-main event. It was welterweights. It was the damn Maverick, Michael Chiesa, pinning an impressive 3-round unanimous decision on former champion at lightweight Rafael dos Anjos. And Chuck, wow.
You like that.
Chiesa 3-0 since moving up to welterweight. But it's one thing to beat.
Look how huge he is.
The husk of Carlos Condit. It's one thing to beat the husk of Diego Sanchez. But you go in there against an RDA who only loses to the super elite, and you dominate him. Wow.
Yeah, and putting the pace on a guy who puts pace on people. You know what I mean? He kind of reversed the tables a little bit. Like, you can see from this footage. I mean, I was really impressed with this one, and I felt like this would be the real gauge to see if he's a welterweight player. And he handled himself great. I think he's loving life at 170, man. And I think I like the fact that there's a guy who's showing that it can be done this effectively. He goes up in weight. So many people want to go down. Jose Aldo recently going down to bantamweight, these types of things. I want to see guys like Jose Aldo go up, because you know that you're going to see them with a different power range. You see how their speed transfers, all that stuff. Chiesa is showing that it can be done, man. But I was very, very impressed, and I love that he had a call out ready.
We're going to get to that in 1 second. You mentioned the size. It was eye-opening, and everybody had the same exact tweet. I'm nothing original here. But how the hell did he ever make lightweight when he goes in there and looks, as you can see over our shoulder, 100% like the bigger man. He looked like he was a weight class and a half above RDA in terms of size, and then you see him dominate physically on the ground. Is this just one of those things where he's figured out how great he can be in this spot?
I think it is. I think it is. I think that there was some stigma that he had to get down to 155. He would kill himself to get down to 155.
Which was weird because people do that to preserve a certain power advantage. He wasn't a power puncher at 55.
And he was trading wins and losses. It wasn't like he was this dominant fighter there. Just really strange. I think it was one of those things that it was in his head, and you think that that's where you're supposed to be. But you can tell he's liberated. Just listen to him talk about about the fights, about the matchups, about he feels invincible at this weight.
Looks like
and that's kind of what you want, right? Like you want to feel that way going against a guy like
this guy's walking around the cage like he's Mr. International player with a passport. He's just like Aladdin, bitch, right?
Yes.
He'll do anything you ask for. All right.
There he goes.
Here it is. He closed the victory, of course, with a heck of a walk-off in the interview with Daniel Cormier, in which you teased. Basically just said, the only thing I have to say is get ready my next opponent.
Yeah.
I'll see you Colby Covington this summer, this July, I think is what he said.
How he could find Colby Covington. Where the hell did that guy go?
Well, how he did the math here was that RDA was ranked 5th by the UFC coming in. We mentioned he had only lost to elites. And by the way, a little side traffic here. RDA's got a sleepy, great resume. When you go back and look at it, we think of him as, he's a good fighter, former champion, whatever.
No, he's been good for a long time, man.
He might have a better resume than Michael Bisping. I'm sorry. You look at the wins he's piled up. Anyway, he takes the L here. Chiesa's thinking is, I beat the number 5 guy. I'm only going up now. That's a strategic call-out. Colby coming off the loss to Kamaru. Do you think Michael Chiesa's wrestling mixed with submission can contend with the cut of this division, meaning the Usmans and the Colby Covingtons who will put that pace on you and will try to grind you out for 5 rounds? Is he at their level in that?
I think that remains to be seen because by saying Colby Covington and saying his name is one thing, but to get in there with that guy like that who puts the pace, we saw that Usman fight, like he loses, but that was a preternatural kind of fight for a guy like Usman. He had to go through a lot, and you had to put a lot of damage on Colby Covington to stop him. So you're asking for something that maybe your mortal end, basically. Like this is one of those types of situations. But you got to love that he feels invincible, that he feels like he can do that, and he wants to go upward. There's so many guys, I think, who kind of look at it more, their doubts kind of come out in who they're calling out. They want guys who are maybe slightly in the range. He wants the guys that are above him because he wants the title shot. So it's hard to blame him, man.
He's a legit sleeper now in this division. I love his mentality. First of all, we learned from Kevin Lee, don't talk bad about Chiesa's mom. We've definitely learned that. But I love that it's sort of like
I forgot about that.
This blue-collar mentality from Chiesa. He's sort of like every guy in terms of when you talk to him, but puts in the time and has that mixture of wrestling and jiu-jitsu. He's going to be a tough out. I don't know if he's going to have that same next level that the guys at the very top have had.